When we are coaching a leadership team, one of the things we are actually doing is teaching them a new language, right? They are or helping them to develop their own language rather than teaching them, because it's different in every team, obviously, right? But the important word here is a common language. And how do you learn a language? By repetition. Just doesn't work in any other way, right?
Mhm.
So they need to practice doing those things. That's why we do things like left and right, right? That's why, we did a card on the SAFE method, right? You will not learn that. It will not become natural unless you repeat it almost endlessly. And again, going back to values, that's why we put them into CEO letters every week. That's why we build good news around values, because you actually want to get to the 9th, 10th, 11th time of repetition when people are almost sick of hearing that, right? Because that's when you know that it actually registered and that it sits there, because then the language has been adopted.
Good morning, good afternoon. Milan, how are you? It is afternoon your time, morning my time, afternoon your time.
As we usually do this, so I am slowly but surely wrapping my day up. I do have a few client calls ahead of me, but not that much, and not that many. And yeah, how about yourself? What's ahead of you today?
I've got a pretty easy day today. I'm going to be doing some work in the garden, such is the joy of working 3 days a week.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Mhm.
very, very good. I
Yep.
am, returning from some travel, so I have a little more intense couple of days catching up, but hopefully I'll get to a similar pace as yourself pretty soon.
Okay, so what are we talking about today, Milan? This is the next cardcast in the series. What's our topic today?
Well, looks like we'll be talking about repetition.
Okay, repetition.
Uh, one of my favorite,
Repetition.
exactly. One of my favorite cards actually is just, it was just a little joke. I don't really remember what it started, but I did realize that, there's quite a few cards at this point,
Mhm.
upwards of 50. And of course, we're coming back to the same topics from different angles. And it's just a way of, what is the topic of the day? It's the nature of it. If you write something twice a week, sometimes similar ideas come. And originally, I was thinking about somehow filtering, but then no, not really, because it might be relevant to somebody else at that point, or they just might need a different point of view. And we work with repetition a lot. After all, the first rule of rhetorics is that repetition is good, and the second one is that repetition is good. So why not just talk about that?
Yeah. Well, in what way do we use repetition as coaches? I mean, it's in some respects, when you say repetition, you think of an adult conversation with a child. You've got to say something to a child, 5, 6, 7, 8 times before it starts to register, and people see that as a negative thing. But in the work that we do, repetition is good, and it's often intentional, and it's to be encouraged. But how do you use repetition?
Well, the point is that if you're doing something again, you get better at it, right? It's practice makes perfect, really. And in a time when I was writing software, when you lost a piece of code and then you had to write it again, it was usually faster and better.
That's true. You go through that mental refactoring process that
Ex-
means you can optimize and remove things that weren't there before and do it a little bit more elegantly.
exactly. And and when we were going through the steps of the tree hack wheel, of our building up a company strategy, when we were working with our clients, we go around and we're not done, right?
Yep.
We go around again because the situation could have changed. We are now a year later, perhaps, right? Sometimes longer. The company might be growing into different markets, so the market map is different. The core customer could have evolved along with the product being evolving. So you go back through those processes. Now you have a leadership team that knows knows the techniques, knows the tools, so it goes faster. The quality grows, right? Sometimes in the beginning we say, okay, this is good enough, right? Just got it out. That's good enough. But later the standard of good enough goes up by the process of repetition. So yeah, just because you've done something in the past doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it again. That's why we white sheet some of those exercises, like if we never done them before.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. As you say, doing it again, you're coming at it from a position of a different knowledge set. Maybe 6 months or a year have passed, so you can go through and you can refine, you can validate, and you can improve on prior work. And each time you do it, you get a little bit better. And the same goes with when we the structure that we use in our annual and quarterly sessions. Even before we get to strategy, we're reinforcing core purpose, we're reinforcing core values, we're reinforcing the big, hairy, audacious goal. And in the past, I've had a few companies where the CEO has said, "Well, we've already done this." And I said, "Well, we did it 3 months ago." He said, "Yeah, but it hasn't changed." Okay, well, let's just make sure it hasn't changed. And the team are liking the fact that we're doing it because this is often the only time they hear it. But the CEO was thinking we were wasting time. Oh, no, no, we're not wasting time. We're not wasting time at all. This is good
And probably
reinforcement.
probably all of us coaches had the same experience. The words might be slightly different in this particular case. Again, we're doing core customer again, right? Well, we've done that. I said, yeah. And do you think you got it right? Well, we've done that. I said, yeah. Do you think like you have product market fit? Look at your sales numbers, right? You're obviously not where you need to be, and you know. My guess as a coach, or my not a guess, but my evaluation of the situation was that we didn't get a core customer right, so we don't know how to talk to them. So we need
Yep.
to do it again because we learned more from the interaction with the market since we've done it last time. So yeah, it was a time to do it again. Repetition is
And
good.
and you may be repeating, but you're asking it from a different knowledge base, and you're probably asking it a different way. So the context is different. So you can go into it with additional insight and a different perspective that often unclogs or unblocks that thing that's getting in your way, that's stopping you from getting where you need to be. I often have conversations with CEOs where I ask them the question, how many times do you have to tell a CEO that you need to tell your team 5, 6, 7, 8 times before things start sinking in? I have to ask that question to the CEO about 5, 6, 7, 8 times before they suddenly get it. Ah, that's what you mean. That's the fourth, fifth, sixth time you've told me that. I understand now. And
Mhm.
that shows them that they have to do the same with their teams. Because the first time, straight over the head. Second time, barely registers. Third time, some flicker of recognition. Fourth time, that's familiar. Fifth time, right, we've done this before. We've said this before. We've heard this before. And then 6, 7, 8 times, that's when it starts registering. But you have to keep on with that repetition because if you don't, it just doesn't sync. It does not register.
You mentioned values, and they are such a great example of this, right? Like you want to come to at values from so many different angles along the way because otherwise they don't sync. You need to. It's like when we are coaching a leadership team, one of the things we are actually doing is to teaching them a new language, right? They are or helping them to develop their own language rather than teaching them because it's different in every team, obviously, right? But the important word here is a common language. And how do you learn a language? By repetition. It just doesn't work in any other way, right?
Mhm.
So they need to practice doing those things. That's why we do things like left and right? That's why we did a card on the safe method, right? uh, you will not learn that. It will not become natural unless you repeat it almost endlessly. And again, going back to values, that's why we put them into CEO letters every week. That's why we build good news around values, because you actually want to get to the ninth, 10th, 11th time of repetition when people are almost sick of hearing that, right? Because that's when you know that it actually registered and that it sits there, because then the language has been adopted.
And when they start laughing at you in a good way, you know that the message has got in. We know this. You can stop telling us every single time. We know this.
Yeah. No, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah,
yeah,
those are very precious moments when we feel like, okay, we're getting somewhere here.
indeed. Yeah. And it takes time. It takes time. And you've just got to let that play out. You just got to let it play out.
Yeah. You're saying it takes time. Uh, I'm working with a client now, and the time is really a factor, and we need to accelerate everything. And the way we're doing it is that we're just meeting more often. We're doing the same things, but we're just doing them in more compressed way. So we get those repetitions in over a shorter period of time that normally would be the quarters and the years, but we're trying to get it 2 weeks and months, right? Because sometimes you literally need those
Yeah,
repetition cycles for the new habits to develop, the
yeah.
language to develop, and the habits.
So you're in effect living in dog years with that client.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. A
we do
quarter is
that
a year, a month is a quarter, a week is a
pretty,
month. Yeah.
pretty
Mhm.
pretty much, yes. And every Tuesday is a Groundhog Day. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're doing the same thing again. But as you say, the more often you do something, the better you get at it, the more consistent it is. The common language comes out, the common grammar comes out, and everyone just moves along faster.
And the reality is that, it might appear that you're doing the same thing, but you'll never do the same thing
Yeah,
because the knowledge is different, the environment is different. Even if there is just a week, there's something happened since we did it last time. It's like you never step twice into the same river because you change and the river changes too. Right?
yeah,
So we learn something, we might react to exactly the same situation in completely different way because of what happened between now and then. So doing the same exercise again doesn't actually mean repeating what we've done before. It's just using the same tool,
yeah.
but with better skill.
So, yeah. So read the same book again, go to the same place again, have the same meal at the same restaurant. It'll be different every single time.
Yeah, yeah, you couldn't say it any better. The book is a great example, right? And when you have a really good author, you can read it 5 times, and every time you
Mm.
find something new in there, right? The
Yeah,
same thing with a good movie, right?
yeah. Mm.
Because the first you get the first layer of the onion, then you get the next one, then you get the next one, and you're getting closer and closer to the core. And some things just need to be consumed repeatedly for you to get all the way to the bottom.
Yeah. Mm. So on repetition, repetition is good and it's intentional. But did we say repetition's good?
Repetition is good.